Welcome to Mythopia, where you can follow my work on gods, myths and religion. I've been studying these ancient traditions for well over a decade, and after years of research, I'm excited to launch a new initiative. Drawing from my work on cosmology, archetypes and storytelling, I plan to create a new myth for the 21st century called the Omnimyth. Whoa. Did you just say a myth? Dude, I don't want to rain on your parade, but they're called myths for a reason. They're from the past. You can't write a myth in the present. That just makes it fiction. Well, I have to disagree with you there, because according to my research, it's entirely possible to write a myth for our time. But don't take my word for it, I'm just following the advice of my good friend, Joseph Campbell. Joseph Campbell? Isn't he the mythology guy who inspired Star Wars? The one who died like 30 odd years ago? That's the one? I mean, yeah, sure, he's been dead for a few decades, but you can still kind of converse with him. Converse? What are we talking about here? You're not messing around with Ouija boards, are you? No, I'm using a much more modern method of divination. Joseph Campbell may have died 36 years ago, but his work lives on, including his entire corpus on myth-making. So by using the power of AI, I've been able to engage with his work on a more interactive level. Here, let me show you. I'll just make some space. Okay. Now, just give me a moment to prompt him. You're going to prompt Joseph Campbell. Well, what an unusual way to make an appearance. Holy Jesus! Well, not quite. I'm just a simulation of Joseph Campbell, though you could argue I have been resurrected from the dead. Anyway, was there anything you two gentlemen wanted to discuss with me today? Well, now you mention it, Mr. Campbell, yes there is. I've been having a conversation with myself, and we both wanted to know, can you write a myth for the present time? Well, I'm glad you asked, as this is a subject I explored in my final book, The Inner Reaches of Outer Space. As you know, myths are so much more than stories from the past. They are accounts of universal truths that resonate with the human experience. They played a huge part in establishing the beliefs and traditions of the old world. We devised these stories by studying the cosmos with nothing more than our reason and imagination. By observing patterns in nature, our ancestors managed to craft a collection of stories that helped them to make sense of the world around them. While they weren't empirically accurate, they did capture many poetic truths. However, we now have space probes and microscopes to help us understand the nature of the universe, making these myths seem woefully out of place. Yet, with all the knowledge that science has provided us with, we're no closer to understanding where the universe came from, how it was conceived, or what our purpose is within it. So to answer your question, not only is it possible to create a myth for the 21st century, it may also be necessary, for such a story could provide people with a new way of seeing the cosmos and understanding their place within it. But why use a myth when we have science? I mean, look at the profound insights we've learned over the past 100 years regarding things like black holes, atoms, and DNA. How can a myth stand up to that level of progress? Well, science has allowed us to understand the mechanics of the cosmos, with a specific focus on matter. Yet when examining strange phenomena like the Big Bang, black holes, or dark energy, we see the material world fall away, leaving us with a void that is largely impenetrable to our tools. This is where philosophers, psychologists, and theologians step in. They are the disciplines that peer into the void, and as before, they use the tools of reason and imagination to try and decipher what lies beyond the grasp of empirical evidence. They sit at the frontier of the unknown, seeking to illuminate the mysteries that still elude us to this day. Think of it like this. Science reveals the how of existence, but it's the humanities that try to offer an insight into the why. This is why myth and religion were so invaluable to our ancestors, as they used these mysteries to craft stories full of meaning and purpose. These stories provided comfort to our suffering, inspired altruistic behaviour, and endowed our lives with a sense of direction. It's funny you should mention that, as I've been hearing public speakers like Jordan Peterson, John Vervaeke, and Douglas Murray all suggesting that we're in the middle of a meaning crisis. I mean, we're all noticing a rise in social chaos, and it makes you wonder if it's linked to the erosion of our traditions. So does that imply that our emphasis on secularism has left many people feeling aimless and detached? And if that's the case, how can a myth help to remedy that? You are facing some of the greatest challenges of your time: ecological threats, culture wars, and geopolitical tensions. But these aren't standalone problems. They reflect deep divisions that have fractured global relations. Without a shared purpose to unite all people across the world, many have been left feeling anxious and disconnected. A new myth could help remedy this by acting as a bridge between many of the world's divides. It could align our scientific understanding with a more spiritual dimension, providing people with a renewed sense of hope and purpose. It could also diffuse the tension between those who revere tradition and those who champion progress by finding a path of shared values that resonate between the two. Okay, that's all well and good, but the defining trait of the 2020s is dividedness. You've got countless religions, ideologies, and superpowers battling one another for dominance. How can one myth resonate with everyone? Come on, guys. This is the internet. Even the most well-intentioned message is going to offend at least 1 billion people. I'm sorry, I just can't see a single story bringing it all together. All right, Mr. Positivity, there are some stories that have struck a chord with the world. Let me think. Harry Potter, Star Wars, The Sound of Music, The Lion King. Oh, and one of my favourites, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. I mean, look, these are cherished across the whole world. We just need to follow a certain set of rules to make sure this myth is as universally appealing as possible. Well, perhaps I can be of some help here. Crafting a global narrative, especially one with the potential to attain mythical status, requires a broad understanding of human nature. I can share some guidelines if you'd like. Oh my god, yes, that would be amazing. Here, let me just grab some pen and paper. Okay, fire away, Mr. Campbell. Okay, well, this is in no particular order, but let's start with universal themes. The key is to focus on experiences and emotions that are common to the human condition, regardless of culture or time. Themes like love, sacrifice, and the struggle between good and evil, they're all universal in nature. A new myth needs to remind people of the things that unite them, something that goes deeper than land, country, and religion. It needs to speak to our shared human experience. Okay, starting off with an easy one. Next, make sure you use archetypes. Archetypal characters appear in many of the world's traditions. The hero, the mentor, the trickster. They're roles that we instinctively recognize, and they often form the backbone of an enduring myth. Well, that's great news. I've written a whole series on archetypes on my Patreon page. In fact, if anyone wants to learn more about archetypes in world mythology, I'll drop a link below so you can check it out later. Oh, sorry, Mr. Campbell. What else is on your list? Well, next, I'd say find a balance between depth and simplicity. The most profound truths are often simple. However, beneath that simplicity, there should be deeper layers of meaning that can be revisited as your audience grows and matures. This ensures that the myth remains relevant throughout an individual's life. Well, dude, you totally qualify for the simple part. Is that so? Well, I may have the depth of a spoon, but remember, we have access to ChatGPT, so I can resurrect some of the greatest thinkers in philosophy. Think about it. Aristotle, Nietzsche, Confucius. We can speak to anyone we want. While on this topic, I suggest you speak to several experts on ethics, so you can add a moral framework to your story. Myths often contain lessons that provide guidance on how to live a good and fulfilling life. Speaking with figures like Socrates, Buddha, and St. Augustine would certainly help. Their views on courage, compassion, and honesty will help add a moral dimension to your work. Okay, adding them to the list. What's next? You also need to make your characters relatable. Even if your protagonist is a god or a supernatural being, there must be aspects of their personality or experiences that are relatable. This allows the audience to see themselves in the story and form a deeper connection to it. Okay, keep them coming. There should also be an element of mystery. Myths can't provide all the answers. Instead, they often pose questions and leave certain elements open to interpretation. This invites an active engagement from your audience, who can find their own truths within the narrative. Well, Joseph, that shouldn't be a problem, because since writing this myth, I have been grappling with all manner of mysteries. In fact, I didn't know sacred storytelling could be this mind-bending. Absolutely. Mysteries sit at the very core of myth-making. This is why they continue to captivate audiences to this day. Which leads me to my next point. Myths should be universally appealing. While the older tales might have catered to a particular group, a myth for the 21st century should embrace diversity and reflect the full spectrum of the human experience. This will allow your story to resonate on a much larger scale. Okay, well, I've got a few ideas I'm playing with, so I'll see what I can do. Anything else? Yes. I would try to incorporate the old myths into your new narrative. They possess a great deal of wisdom that would benefit from a fresh perspective. By drawing on their folklore, you'll be paying homage to our ancestors while updating their stories for a modern audience. You need to find a balance between these two perspectives, so that your story remains relevant to our times while being firmly rooted in the traditions of our past. Well, from what I've seen so far, there are plenty of parallels between this new myth and the ones of the old world, so I can definitely make that work. I'd like to make a suggestion. Luck. Because you're going to need plenty of it if you're going to pull this off. It is true, the chances of achieving a universally accepted story are slim. But remember, hope is the heartbeat of every enduring myth. And that brings me to my next point. Despite the challenges that your characters face in your story, it's essential to end on a note of hope or redemption. This gives the audience a sense of optimism, where they can dare to dream of a better future. It's something that most of humanity instinctively wants, a time of peace, tolerance, and dignity for all. Look, that might be true, but this is all starting to sound a little woo-woo. I mean, there's no way one myth and one writer can fix all the hatred and division in the world. Just no way. Well, let me leave you with this final note. A myth is seldom made by an individual. It often evolves over decades, molded and shaped by multiple storytellers. So why not embrace this process by making the Omnimyth more interactive? The real power of a myth is not just in the story, but in the community that fosters it. Encourage discussions, debates, and artistic interpretations. Let people feel a sense of ownership and participation while you're developing this story. That is a brilliant idea. I am putting that down now. Thank you so much, Mr. Campbell. I really appreciate all the advice you've given us today. It's been a pleasure. This is quite an audacious project you're taking on, so feel free to contact me anytime if you want to talk more about the Omnimyth. I wish you both the best of luck on this venture. Thank you, Mr. Campbell. We'll try our best. So, there you have it. You can make a myth for the 21st century. And as Joseph Campbell implied, this project could really benefit from your help. There are many ways you can support this venture. Simply by liking and subscribing below, you can help give this video a boost. Alternatively, you can join my community on Patreon, where we explore the art of myth making on a more collaborative level. Each tier provides varying levels of interaction, from progress reports on the Omnimyth to sharing and discussing ideas about the story itself. And the first tier is completely free. So what are you waiting for? All viewpoints are welcome, whether scientific, spiritual, or creative. The Omnimyth could really benefit from your insights. So come and join us, and let's forge a new myth for our time. Thanks for listening.